Good morning, good morning. Welcome to our first of our morning movement series. And this is going to be about opening up through the front. So opening up through the chest and maybe the tight areas in our shoulders, opening up through the belly. Maybe if we've been sitting at a desk, kind of slumped over, or sitting just a bit too much, opening up through the hips. So anything that we can do to kind of open up the front of the body today. And if we don't get to everything today, then we'll resume next week. So we'll just see where it goes. So I'd like you to start in standing, and before you join, just make sure you have a foam roller or a rolled up towel that you can put between your shoulders. And I've got a soft massage ball, so anything that's kind of forgiving, yeah, a little bit bigger than a tennis ball would be good. And we'll get to it in standing. So what I'd like you to do is just let your arms kind of flop by your side. And I'd like you to notice how the front of your shoulders feel this morning. So do they feel rounded? Do they feel elevated? Do they feel relaxed? Do they feel tense? So I just want you to let them come up. And what I'd like you to do is to just hold one side in your hand. And as you breathe in, feel that you kind of tense that top part of the shoulder. And then as you exhale, just let it melt and just maybe brush your hand down your other arm. So I'm going to hold that kind of tense area in the shoulder, elevate as you breathe in. And exhale, brush that arm down, just kind of taking all the tension away. So inhale up. Feel a little bit of tension, but don't overdo it. And then exhale as you melt and release back down. So do that one more time on this side. Tension up. So kind of feeling the difference. And exhale, melting down. And let's do the other side. So just have a little feel around that area of your shoulder. Notice if it is tense. And then elevate as you breathe in. Create a little bit of tension in that system. And then melt it away down your arm. Inhale, elevate, and exhale, melt it down your arm, like melted butter, melted chocolate, whatever you want to think about, or maybe even just a sponge, and you're kind of wringing out the water in that sponge. So you kind of tension it up, it's full of water, and then you wring it out as you come down. Now I want you to just brush across yourself from your sternum out into the shoulder. So you're just kind of opening the shoulder out. Yeah, so I'm just brushing across the chest. My shirt is coming down, but that's okay. So if your shirt feels like it's slowly kind of coming off your shoulder, that's great. So I'm just brushing across the front into the arm. So opening up the pectorals that come here, just do that a few more times. 2, 1, and then the same. So come from the sternum, brush it across, brush it across. So just releasing any of that negative tension in there, almost feeling like the upper arm just slowly starts to pull back a little bit. Obviously, you can do some myofascial release here before you start this workout, so getting into those pecs, but this is a nice little kind of fascial brushing that opens up the shoulder. Just one more. Awesome. Okay, now what I'd like you to do is bring your fist into the center of your sternum, so feel that hard plate, and I just want you to close in to flex. And then I want you to burst out to the side and open the arms out to the side of the room. And then bring the fists in so it feels kind of tensioned here. It feels rounded. You're rounding the spine. And then as you open the arms out, you're going to open the fingers, open the shoulders, reach out, opening all that fascia at the front. And we're going to do this in a couple different ways today. So inhale. And exhale, and allow the chest to lift a little bit if that feels good. So the sternum is kind of widening. Your collarbones are widening out. Your arms are widening out, trying to go to a place that feels really good. Don't create unnecessary tension. And one more time, opening out, let that sternum lift. Good. Okay, so now I want you to bring your arms out in front of you here, just the hands kind of pressed together. And I'd like you to just softly open the one arm, reaching the other arm forward, and then come back to center. So you're creating a little bit of a book opening, a rotation. Pay attention to how far you go, that you don't pinch into the shoulder blade behind. So I want you to find the place where just the fascia opens at the front, but you don't overdo the pulling through the back. So opening one arm at a time. So just a nice little reach forward of the one arm. Now you're going to turn your palms facing front, and then you're going to pull back the one arm this way. Okay, so it's a bent position here, and then come back to center, and then I'm pulling the one arm back, opening the chest of that side, pushing the other one forward slightly. So you're going to feel your shoulder blades moving on your back, hopefully. But really feel this arm that's coming back. You're really opening through that chest that we just released. Find the place that feels good, reaching back. So I'm feeling that opposition of the two, one going forward, one going back. And then go back to that palms center. So we're going to go open long, back to center. Open long, back to center. Two more of those. And then turn the palms front and pull. So it's a little bit more narrow. 2 and 3 and 4. You can keep going with that if that's enjoyable, the open and the close, just so you can see my shoulders a little bit more. So we're going to go into another little rotation, and I'd like you to bring your right arm out to the side. I tend to point the finger for some reason, but you don't have to point the finger. And I want you to lift up, just find where that feels okay, and put the other hand here at the chest, and guide the chest around as you turn. And then come back to center. So easy peasy. So arm comes up to the side, up as far as your lats will allow, and then I'm guiding my chest open with the other hand as you rotate the arm behind. Let your gaze also look behind you. So following that eye around the horizon and behind. So another little opening of the front, but adding rotation. And just letting your hips and your legs for now go with it. So I'm bending into the opposite leg. So the right arm comes up, I turn to the right, and the left leg just slightly bends. So up and circle open. Again, if it feels a little bit pinchy in the back of the shoulder, don't go so far. Okay, so just find, even if it doesn't feel that big this morning, just try and find a place where you rotate open and it doesn't feel pinchy. So let's do one more. And then come back to center. Maybe just notice how that right shoulder feels now compared to the left. So I feel like that right shoulder is sitting a little bit further back in space just by doing that. Okay, so we're going to come up with the left. So up as far as you feel comfortable this morning. Okay, if it's not all the way to the top, that's fine. And then guide with your hand, rotating to the left. Inhale as you come up with the arm. Let's exhale as you go back. So notice this side, if it feels a little bit stickier, a little bit different. Up to the side, up to the top, and rotate. And remember, allowing that right leg to just respond as the hips turn. Rotating the chest. Good. So just guiding this arm to coach open the front of the chest. Let's do one more here. And then see how the shoulders feel now, and hopefully you feel just a little bit more open through there. If you don't, then you might just need a little bit more myofascial release on there to open that tissue. So let's focus now down into the front of the belly a little bit. So these are the 3 zones. We're going to go chest, belly, and kind of hips and thighs. So I want you to reach the arms up, lengthening through the tummy. So feel like your pubic bone goes down and your rib cage goes up. And then wherever you want your arms to fall down, if you want them to come down to the side, or if you want them to come back to the front, that's fine. So lifting up and just feeling whether this tissue is tight. We take for granted actually that the abdominal tissue actually does get very tight. It gets short from sitting. So we want to lengthen the pubic bone down, the ribcage up. Okay, if that feels too much for your shoulders, maybe just do a little bit of the elbows going up, or whatever way allows you to stretch through the front of the belly. So the arms don't necessarily need to reach, but it is sometimes helpful to have them going up. Okay, so just do 2 more of those. Up and release. And 1 more. I'm kind of pressing down into the floor as you lift the ribs. Now, as the arms come up, and they can be a little bit soft, it's up to you, I want you to reach one side and then the other. Now, this isn't an overstretching feeling. It's just that I want this fascia up the obliques to give a little bit. So don't overdo it, but it's like I'm climbing up a little rope and trying to just open up between the ribs and the pelvis. Now, this is a decompression exercise. So we're trying to decompress so that our ribs aren't slammed onto our pelvis. Now, you can also do this and hug your ribs around, and then lift the ribs up, lift the shoulders up. Try and feel like you're sending your trunk up and away from your legs, and then let everything kind of slump down onto each other. So pulling the ribs up, opening the chest, letting the shoulders elevate a little bit, not in tension. But imagine you're, I always think of like a magician stretching, kind of a person in a box. So you're opening up this space. You've got the top of the body going up, the bottom of the body going down. Might not feel like super strong, but you just want to feel space. So 1 more time. And release it back. Now, if you've got a little couch nearby or a chair that you can come down to, put a pillow underneath your knee, and we're just going to open up the hips a little bit here, okay? Now, I don't have a little couch or chair, so I'm going to imagine that my back foot is just resting up on a little chair or couch here, and the front foot is bent 90 degrees. You can start with the hand on the floor, get yourself in position. So we're going to be stretching down the front of the hip and the quads. And then if you can, once you're there, you're going to tilt the pelvis up towards 12, pubic bone to navel, and see if you can come to balance here on that front leg. Now that probably will feel for most of you this morning like a big pull up the front of the quads. So that's where we want to hit. And then you can come back down to the floor, just have a little rest. And then we'll come back up again. Tilt the pelvis. So make sure that bottom knee is really supported. Notice the angle. My hips are slightly forward of the knee rather than being vertical. And then I want to tilt the pelvis up. If you can drag that front leg, that gives you even more stretch. And then release out of it. Come to the floor. If you need to adjust, release the stretch. So let's do that 1 more time. Tilt the pelvis up. If you just got there and you're a little bit behind me, then try and do at least 3. Once you're there, hold for 3, 2, 1. If it feels really, really tight for you, and you feel like even coming up to your legs is a little bit of a challenge, then I challenge you this week to do this every day, okay? This is one of those exercises that if we're sitting quite a lot, we can feel the tightness in here. Okay, so pop your other foot up on that couch or your chair. Take a moment, and then once you're there and settled, tilt the pelvis, coming up to balance. This is hard without a chair here. Should have got that before I started. And then release to the ground. Tilt the pelvis, coming up, hold for 3, drag that front heel if you can, 2, and 1, and then release. And 1 more time, just take care of that knee underneath you. Make sure you have a pillow or a cushion, that you're not just straight down into your carpet or your floor. 2, 1, and then slowly come away from there. Now we're going to go into our all fours position, and we're going to focus on the extension part of the cat stretch. So I want you to think of your vertebrae being able to open through the front and also open through the back. So when we go into a curved position, we're kind of opening the discs to the back. When we go into an extended position, we open the discs through the front. So I'd like you to go in this tall kneeling position and just feel a little soft bending forward, opening up the vertebrae at the back of you. If you can open up through the lower back, that's great. So I'm just coming down a little bit, and then feel like you open the vertebrae through the front of you. Coming up, especially here, I want you to imagine your breastbone is like a big slinky. Okay, so you're opening up that breastbone, kind of peeling your collarbone up to the sky. So if you think of those first few ribs, kind of fanning up to the ceiling. And then open up the back of you. Okay, so we're not focusing on that today, but we do want to have this light and dark, this positive, negative, this opposites. And then I'm opening up through the front. Now we know that we don't want to go hyperextending through the back, so we want to be kind of vertical through the low back and then opening up that slinky at the chest. Now if your shoulders stay rounded and you try and extend, it's near on impossible, okay? But if you open the arms and rotate them as your chest lifts, yeah? So if we go a little bit of a spiral opening the arms, suddenly the chest lifts a little bit prouder. So let's add those arms. We're going to rotate in. If this is too much kneeling, you can do this little section standing. Okay, so if your knees are not happy, you can come and then we open. So really feel that rotation in the upper arm leads the opening of our slinky here in the chest. So internally rotating the upper arm, and just be mindful that we're not just opening the lower arm. Okay, so we're opening through the ball of the top of the shoulder. And as we open up, we get that nice extension. So let's think about that on the floor when our hands are weight bearing. Okay, so spread the hands out. We're going to just gently open through the front just so we can feel the opposition. And then as you open through the, open through the back here, as you open through the front, there's a little bit of connection to our deep belly, but we want to open those vertebrae at the front. Think of your slinky, of your sternum going forward, and the arms rotating outwards slightly. So my upper arm is spiraling outwards. It's not going to feel as strong as when we were in that kneeling. Open the front of the back of you. Open the back of you very softly, nothing forceful. And then from the pubic bone all the way up through the belly, through each rib, slinky sternum, opening those collarbones, rotating the upper arm. So feel how that feels for you. Does it feel harder now that the arms are weight bearing to get that real length through the front? So I don't want to collapse into this, because that doesn't open the front, it just collapses the back. I want you guys to feel that you're going forward and up into these patterns. Okay, just do one more here. And lengthening all the way up through the front. And then just come into a little shell, just coming off of your wrists for a moment. And we're gonna grab our roller. If you don't have a roller, then please use a rolled up towel just in between your shoulder blades and on your head. Or you could have a head block and then have the towel kind of in between. If you've got a half roller, put that between your shoulder blades and maybe then have a few extra blocks behind your head, okay? So that the roller is kind of hitting your mid-back. So we're gonna lie on our backs. And if you don't have any of that nearby, just do the arm exercises that we're doing, okay? It'll still serve you to be on the mat, especially if you're very tight. Okay, make sure you have your head towel underneath your head when you're on the roller. Okay, so if you're on the half roller or on your towel, just make sure that your pelvis is really supported, that you're not hyperextended through your low back. So you might want to prop a little block underneath your pelvis. Just get yourself so that the chest can open out to the side here along that roller. So just take a second to make sure you are in the middle. If you're on your little towel, just try and make sure it's placed right between your shoulder blades. And then we're going to lift the arms up. And I want you to feel your spine on the roller. So I don't want you to feel your shoulder blades collapse I want you to feel your spine on the roller, that mid-back, that upper back. Now you're going to softly open the arms, kind of like we did in standing. And as you open the arms, focus on the front opening. Find a path for the arms that feels from the sternum. You're opening out through the collarbones, through the biceps, and into the hands. You don't necessarily need to reach the floor. Probably if you're reaching the floor, you're just collapsing, okay? So I want you to feel like there's some elastic tension in this. I don't want to say tension, but there's elasticity. So feel like you're opening a piece of toffee, stretching it out, feeling space, but not collapsing the shoulder blades to the roller. So I'm feeling a nice tingly opening feeling through the shoulders. So you decide where those arms need to be. They might be slightly lower, kind of more chest level. Notice if they go too high up, you don't kind of feel the opening. So I'm trying to really peel across from the center of the chest out to the arms. If you want to hold there, that's great, if that feels good for you, but try not to just hang, okay? It's not a hanging position. It's almost like your shoulder blades are also opening as your arms open. So if the shoulders are pinching, then we need to come back a little bit and feel more the front. Okay, feel free to stay with that if that feels good and you want a little bit more of that. What I'm now going to do is bend the elbows, so I'm in like a goalpost position. So it's this position of the arms, but I'm still focusing on opening through the front as the arms go open, so kind of 90 degrees. And also I want you to spiral backwards your upper arm. Okay, so it's like you're trying to show your armpits to the ceiling. And that's going to give a nice big rotator cuff stretch. It might be too much for some of you. So just go to a place that feels okay, that you're not straining. But this can feel really nice across the front in a slightly different way than the arms opening. So I'm trying to open through the front and then rotate the upper arm. So actually the hands are a little bit lower than my elbows. Okay, so it's a real rotated open feeling. If it feels pinchy anywhere, it feels yucky anywhere, then ease back. Try and really focus on the front, the chest opening. Good. So you can go there, maybe hold for a couple counts, or if it feels really good to stay there. Adjust the elbows if you feel you want them lower down. You'll feel, hopefully in yourself, where the tissue kind of needs to open up. Just be aware, it's just aware of my rib cage kind of popping. So try not to let the ribs pop. Okay, so stay with that a bit longer if you like. The last exercise, we're just going to do a little scissor arm. So one arm going down, one arm going overhead. And I want you to feel the elastic now underneath your arm to bring the arms back. So the arms attach from the back of the pelvis, underneath the arm, and up into the baby finger here. So we're really feeling the lats open up. Let the shoulder blades glide up your back as the arms go over. Not too much that it feels pinchy and overstretched. It is a rotation of the arms in the socket. You might notice doing the scissor that the roller is suddenly wibbly wobbling all over the place. It is for me. Okay, so go in your range that feels okay, but feel the elastic quality of your arms. Let's just do one more on each side. So out of those three, the opening out to the side, the goalpost, the scissor, maybe notice for you which one serves you best. It might be all three, it might be one, it might be none. Maybe you're very open through the chest, which in that case, that is amazing. Okay, I'm going to come off the roller. And I'm going to use it through my lower half to come into inverted positions. So half roller works really nice. If you don't have a roller, you can still put the towel under, or if you've got one of these soft balls, yeah, that will work underneath your hips. So I'm going to put this underneath my pelvis. Make sure it's underneath the sacrum, so the hard bit of your pelvis. is going to be rested there. Now we're going to focus on opening this hip again, both hips, not just one. But I'd like you to take a moment to melt your ribs down. To feel the breath softening the back of you. To feel your shoulders now are nice and open. So hopefully they can just melt on the mat. Check your head, neck, shoulders. So for some of you this morning, it might feel like you have a very big arch in the back. So take a little bit longer to let the back of the muscles just calm down. Just breathe. So the pelvis will start to slope a little bit towards 12 once you settle the back. And once you feel that happen, we're going to take one leg to tabletop. And you're going to slide the other leg down. But as you slide it down, the pelvis is going to tip a little bit more 12. So I can get that feeling of opening up through the front. And then I want you to rotate the leg outward and inward. So I'm kind of rolling my heel bone outward and inward. Outward and inward. So feeling where that tightness is, does the leg want to fall out to the side? Notice my knee is bent. If the leg can be straight and be more out, but without arching the back, that's great. But I find if we overstretch the leg, often the back starts to lift up. So we want to keep the back calm. Okay, so now come back up. Take the other leg down, start with it bent, slowly go to where you feel just that little bit of opening through the front, but the pelvis is tilted to 12. And then just gently rotating outwards and inwards. So my leg wants to flop out to the side, so I have to work a little bit harder to rotate it in. And then that's kind of working very mildly around the hip, but I'm aware that there's some tightness there. And then one more, rotating in. Hold the roller as both legs come up to tabletop. Now we're going to do a little single leg stretch. I don't like the word stretch because it implies that we're really pushing that leg out in space, and we don't really want to. So what I want you to feel when the one leg goes forward is almost you're sucking the head of the femur more into your abdomen. So we feel space there, but we're not trying to stretch the leg kind of out of the socket. And then inhale to come back in, exhale, reach the other leg. So can you keep the ball of the femur kind of deep into your hip and feel that the leg going forward almost feels hollow and light. And there's a feeling of an elastic opening through the front, but it doesn't feel like a massive stretch, because actually when we overstretch that tissue, it actually wants to come back even tighter. So it's a feeling of space and elastic, but not stretch. If I go down there, it kind of feels like it's pulling. And that might be for you what you think you need to find, but actually with this it's not. Now, can you float the arms up? And as the one leg goes forward, your arms go back. Watch you're not hitting anything. But lots of things in my way. Come back into tabletop. Exhale the other leg, reach both arms. Now notice your pelvis. Is it just slumped there? Or is it having to balance on your roller? So see if you can really feel that your pelvis is balancing on the roller rather than just slumped. Okay, so I have to work a little bit. So just do a few more of this, letting the arms go overhead, letting the leg go forward, one more. And then come back in. Now to take your roller away, roll your legs towards you and push the roller forward. And then just move that out of the way. And let's come onto your back. So we're going to do a little leg opener here out to the side. So I'd like you to just roll your pelvis 12 and 6. So rolling your marble to your pubic bone and rolling up towards your navel. And then coming to that lovely neutral where the pelvis feels heavy. Now we're going to let the legs rotate in the hips. My feet are staying flat. So I want you to feel that spiral open through the legs. And then feel like the inner thighs and the pubic bone kind of pull together to bring the legs back in. So rotate the legs in the hips. Yeah, it's like the leg is rotating outwardly and almost like the head of the femur is going more into your abdomen. And then feel the inner thighs and the pubic bone pull the legs back. Let's add our lovely little opener that we did with our arms on the roller at the same time. So let's open the arms out as the legs go out. Again, it's not passive. I don't want you to just flop your legs, because actually when I flop my legs, my sacrum comes off the mat. So it's really about keeping the sacrum on the mat, and then as the legs come up, the arms are going to close. Good, so feel that movement together, rotating the legs open, widening through the chest, and then closing the inner arm, closing the inner thighs. Now this time as the arms close and the legs close, we're going to come into a tabletop. So I want you to breathe in once the arms and the legs are open. And you're going to melt your pelvis and your shoulders and your head into the floor, and the legs are going to circle around to tabletop and the arms are going to come up. Then I would lower one leg down, femur arc, and then the other, and then open again. So rotating, the legs open, keeping the sacrum on the mat, opening the arms. Take a breath in. As you exhale, melt the pelvis, circle the legs. So I'm kind of bringing them up towards me and then bringing them around to the center. So really feeling the pelvis heavy, and then arc the leg back down, and then the other. So let's do that 2 more times. Open the arms, rotate the legs, breath in, exhale, melt the pelvis, circle the legs around, bring the arms back up. Leg lowers, and then the other. One more time, open, and melt into that pelvis. You should feel very secure now with your pelvis on the mat. Now you're going to take a little single leg stretch, arms overhead like we did with the roller behind us, but it should feel very different now that the pelvis is on the ground. So I want you to melt the pelvis into the ground as the leg goes forward. Keep it deep in your abdomen. Exhaling. If it's too much with the arms and the legs, just do the legs. Or just do the arms. Now, if you're getting a clunking like I am on my left, it means that the leg is coming out of your head. So you might want to decrease the lever and keep it in a bent position. Okay, so that's just taking my clunking away completely. So as soon as you go into a shorter lever, actually the core, for me, I had to work a little bit further, a little bit more. Okay, so let's do 2 more. Arms overhead, and you decide if you need a bent leg position more or whether that straight leg is helpful. And then take the legs into the chest and just do a little rock side to side. Now this is really about keeping your pelvis neutral as you open the hips and you release the arms, okay? So I want you to go back to tabletop, make sure your pelvis is nice and secure and heavy, and we're going to do a little double leg drop. Now I want to feel that the front of the hips are able to open. Now I go about there, not that far, and my pelvis starts to tip forward. So we're not looking very far here, so slowly letting the legs drop. I'm arcing them down here, and as you do it, you might feel that your marble is rolling up towards your navel a little bit. Okay, so you're really trying to keep the pelvis secure. Okay, now see what it feels like to lengthen forward and up the legs a little bit more. Ooh, that's really hard. Okay, you don't need to go super far. Okay, even if the legs don't go all the way out, but you're deepening the belly in response. Remember, the legs suck up into your abdomen as you push out. You're not trying to hang them off your hips. So 2 more there, reaching, or keeping that shorter lever if that's easier for you. 1 more. Reaching out, deepening the belly in. And then reach the legs all the way down, opening the front of the hips, opening the front of the belly, opening underneath the arms. Awesome. Okay, let's roll onto the side and do a little kind of old school book opening. So we're gonna put the little head block or a pillow underneath your head with your arms stretched out and then the other arm on top. Okay, so you just have to get this ability to roll on your bottom arm. Okay, so you want to be able to roll from the ball of the arm to kind of the back of the shoulder. So we're going to slide the top arm along the bottom arm across the sternum, and we're just going to finish with the hand here. So I don't want you to extend the arm out. I just want you to do this little pull because I want the emphasis to be your thoracic spine rotating, not your arm just flapping out in the wind, okay? So we're going to go across the sternum to kind of the end of the shoulder and rotate. And as you do that, I want the top leg to just reach forward slightly. Okay, now that might give you a nice kind of stretch all the way around the back of the pelvis. And then come back forward, kind of lifting the head a little bit as the arm goes forward. So as the arm comes along the bottom arm and I start to rotate, the head is now supported. Kick that top leg forward. Now this is actually opening up the front of the upper body and the back of the lower body. So this is a little bit more of a spiral. And then come back forward, let the head lift up. And slide along. Open that chest. If you feel that you can control that arm out in space from there, but I often find that people are kind of hanging this arm. And I feel actually more in my trunk by keeping the hand there. So it's up to you. Reaching forward. One more time on this side. Pulling that sternum open, that collarbone, reaching the leg forward. And come back. So I just want you to notice that feeling on that side so you can kind of detect on the other side if it's tighter, if it's easier to rotate. Okay, so let's get on that shoulder where you can roll comfortably. The arm is straight out in front of you. So actually, when the body is kind of more forward here, the head feels more comfortable to be slightly up. So see how that feels for you. And then as you start to roll back and along your arm and across your sternum and across that collarbone, then that top leg kicks forward. See if that feels different for you on this side. And then reach the arm back in front. The head lifts up a little bit. Just really navigate your head how it feels good for you. Across the collarbones, opening through that chest side. We get a lovely little glute release there. Just make sure when you do these rotations, you're always supported through your transverse muscles, okay? So you're not over pulling back, and there's always a connection through the middle. This does feel a little bit tighter for me, so notice how it is for you. Okay, one more time here. And then come back to center. Lovely. Now we're going to come onto our front, and we're going to open the hips a little bit with a little bit of rolling. I was going to use the Franklin ball, but I think with time, because we've got to finish at 9:50, so I can get sorted for my my studio session. If you want to later on and do a little bit of Franklin ball release in the front of the hip, if you find your swans are a little bit tight, then I definitely suggest that, okay? So we're gonna come to our front with the hands under the head to start with, and we're gonna do a little bit of a reaching of the legs. So make sure you have enough space here that you're not gonna hit something. So as you rest down, I want you to reach the right leg just a little bit further down the mat and see if you can start to reach it across behind you. So you're reaching it down the mat and over and around so it opens that right hip and the right belly. So I'm lifting it into the air and reaching it behind. So I want you guys to feel from your rib cage through your hip, through the thigh, through the foot. Now, be careful as you go here that you don't go into your low back. So there's a little bit of 12, little bit, so that you reach through the front fascia of your leg and body. And then come back and do the same on the left. So I'm going to softly reach. You got to be very careful that the quads aren't like tensioned, okay? So I'm reaching through the center of the leg, peeling it around slightly higher, letting it pull the hip, pull the belly. That feels a little bit tighter on that side, so notice for you. Inhale to come back, or whatever breath works for you. So reaching the leg, really taking your time, okay? Feel that you're trying to open the fascia from your bottom rib, through your tummy, through your hip, through your quad to your foot. And then on the other side, from your rib cage, down through your hip. It might feel really labored on one side. Oh, that feels so much more sticky. Okay, let's do one more on each. Also sliding down the mat here. So reach softly, feel like a hollow leg. Feel the tissue, the elastic from your rib cage through your hip to your leg. If you feel a little bit of low back, tuck your pelvis. Just a little bit 12. Notice if then you feel more down the thigh. One more time. Rotate, reach. Little bit of 12 if you need it. And come back to center and soften your thighs into the mat. We're back, sorry. Soften your thighs into the mat as we go into a little swan position. So we're letting the front of the hips and the front of the thighs to melt. You're going to do a little wiggle of your pelvis. And I want you to feel the arms in this W position to start. And I want you to feel that you're now lengthening the front of you from the front of the feet up through the quads, the front of the thighs, through the hips, through the pubic bone, up through the belly like we did in standing, up through each rib. The slinky of your sternum goes forward and up. And you're just breathing softly. You're noticing if your shoulders are really tense as you're doing it. And just find where that natural elastic is for you. Might not be high, it might be here. For some of you, you might have more elastic. And then come back down. So as you come through the front of you, there is a little bit of a transverse connection here. So keep going at your own time. So you're coming up through here. As you get to your ribs, you want to make sure your ribs don't go down to the floor. So they're going up, then each rib from there is going up. The sternum is going kind of forward and up. Your roof of the mouth lifts. Everything's going forward and up, and then come back down. Now as you do that, if it feels better to go a little bit off center, so can we think of the one leg coming across diagonally to the opposite chest and rotating around, looking over your shoulder. And then come back. So then I think of the other leg coming up the shin, through the thigh, through the knee, over, looking over the opposite shoulder. If you feel a little bit of tension in your low back, just don't go so high. Maybe change the arm position. Maybe go into a little halo position, and just keep checking that pelvis is not too tight. So just do that a few times if you want to go through the middle, if that feels okay. Lifting the deep abdominals, lifting the rib cage with you, or if you feel better doing our little kind of reach across. And if it feels like you can go into a full swan, then please do that. If it doesn't feel like you want to do that, that is absolutely fine as well. Okay, so you can go to the level that opens up the front but doesn't kind of tension the back. Let's do one more through the front with your hands a little bit more narrow and the elbows up, and we're going to peel forward. Soft legs, the legs reach down the mat. The slinky of your chest goes forward. Have a little pause. Wiggle the pelvis. See if you can stretch a bit more the front of you. Wiggle the pelvis. Then a bit more the front. Using the hands a little bit. Wiggle the pelvis. So each time we're freeing up that tension. And if it got there, that's great. If it didn't, that's absolutely fine. You listen to your body and maybe notice for yourself where you need to release. The other place that's really helpful if you're tight is releasing into the rectus abdominis, which is what I would have done if we had a little bit more time. So front of the hips, rectus abdominis, if that feels a little bit tight for you. Okay, we'll keep progressing, definitely those swans, because they are my favorite to do. So let's just come up to standing again. And just as a little kind of repeat of the beginning warm up, let's take the hands into a little fist in the center, bend the knees, and then opening, bursting out to the side. And then inhale in. Let's burst up to the front, lifting up through the center body, through the belly that we just released. And then come in, and let's stretch the hip back. So taking one leg back, reaching up, tilting the pelvis, finding a nice little stretch up the front of the leg, and then come back in, and lifting up, tilting the pelvis with the other leg back, coming into that little warrior pose, and then coming back to center, and opening out, lifting the breastbone up. Take that nice breath in, and then lower the arms down, finding that central place, that feeling of rooting yourself into the floor and sending the rest of your body up. If you felt that anything, felt really good today, play with that this week. If you felt like some of the stuff felt a little bit sticky, then as we open the back, maybe in the next series, that might serve you better. Thank you very much. Have a good weekend.